Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to discuss Edward Said's Orientalism. Edward Said's Orientalism is the most celebrated work that hit in the stalls in 1978. It has been influential in all about half a dozen Eastern disciplines, especially literary studies, English, comparative literature, history, anthropology, sociology, area studies, mainly Middle East and studies, and comparative religion. In Orientalism, side examines Western representation, fiction and non-fiction, of the Middle Eastern societies and culture. The book won him universal recognition for innovative and provocative exploration of the interrelationship between text, literary, and otherwise. Side examines these works with reference to social, political, and economic context from which they emerged. Edward Said, in his books, adopts a continental interrelationship, interdisciplinary approach to literary criticism, using the principles of phenomenology, existentialism, and French structuralism to trace out the connections between literature and politics. His theories and methods have tremendously influenced American academic critics, especially with regard to literary theory and cultural studies. Said's central concern in Orientalism is the multiple relationship between the act of writing and cultural politics, language and power. He attempts to show how Western journalists, fiction writers, scholars help to build up a prevalent and hostile image of the Eastern cultures as inferior, stagnant, and degenerate. He also attempts to show the context to which these representations permeate the Western culture. The West exploited these representations to justify their imperialist policies in the Middle East. There are some key terms used in Orientalism. In Orientalism, Edward Said has used various derivatives of the word Orient, which literally means the east, the direction from which the sun rises. Geopolitically, Orient signifies the Middle East, Asia, the Far East, territories that were once a part of one or another European empire. Side uses the word Orient to signify a system of representation framed by political forces that brought the Orient or the East into Western empire, Western learning, and Western consciousness. The West uses the word to its relation to the East. It is a mirror image of the inferior, the alien, other to the Occident, West. Oriental is a noun form which means an individual or people of the Orient. As an adjective, the word qualifies anything belonging to the East. For example, Oriental landscape, literature, attitude, etc. Orientalist means a person who studies or writes about the Orient. Orientalism is used academically to signify Western doctrines and theses about the Orient. Said also makes it clear that he is not attempting to cover the whole area. He focuses on how American, English, and French scholars have approached the Arab societies of the Middle East and North Africa. The period he covers in his book extends from the late 18th century to the present. The concept of the other and alter ego is Said's Orientalism. Said has used some key concept that is other, alter ego, etc. Edward Said's starting point in Orientalism is that the existence and development of every culture impels the existence of a different and inevitably competitive other or alter ego. Therefore, Europe, in attempting to construct self-image, created the Middle East, the Orient, as the ultimate other. The Middle East, the Orient, and the West, the Occident, do not correspond to any stable reality that exists as a natural fact but are merely products of construction. Orientalism, definition and explanation. Edward Said put forward several definitions of Orientalism in the introduction of his book Orientalism. Some others, some these are. Firstly, Orientalism is a style of thought based upon on ontological and epistemological distinction between the Orient and most of the time the Occident. Said argued that his distinction emphasized the supremacy of the Occident versus the inferiority of the Orient. Second, Orientalism, a field of academic research that includes everyone who teaches, investigates, and writes about the Orient. Third, Orientalism is a corporate institution for dealing with the Orient, beginning in the 18th century. In short, Orientalism is a Western style of dominating, studying, and having authority over the Orient. Moreover, it is a way of coming to terms with the Orient that is based on the Orient's special place in European Western culture and experience. In the light of this perception, the Middle East is static, unalterable, and cannot define itself. Therefore, through Orientalism, the West took it upon itself to represent the Orient, and by doing so, opened it to exploration. The very purpose of Orientalism is to take control of the Orient and take away from it any ability to speak for itself. Said maintained that it is the stereotypes and prejudices that determine the Western representation of the Orient. Edward Said's definition of Orientalism as a discourse. Edward Said also described Orientalism as a discourse, a definition he takes from the French philosopher and historian Michel Foucault. Foucault defined discourse as a system of thought that governs the knowledge obtained by a person. This knowledge is a paraphrase of preconceived notions and ideas. So, a discourse is the product of interaction between power and knowledge, interconnected in a never ending circle. In Foucault's view, knowledge is power and also the way of gaining power. Edward Said, following the ideas of Foucault, focused on the relationship between power and knowledge. He argued that without examining Orientalism as a discourse, one cannot comprehend the hugely systematic discipline by which European culture was able to manage and even construct the Orient politically, militarily, sociologically, scientifically, imaginatively, and ideologically during the post Enlightenment period. Edward cites Orientalism, the summary of the text. In Orientalism, Edward cites builds up his argument and analysis in three long chapters. Here is a brief summary of three chapters in Edward Said's Orientalism. Chapter 1, the scope of Orientalism. The scope of Orientalism covers all the dimensions of the subject, both in terms of historical experiences and time period. Moreover, it also covers the subject in terms of political as well as philosophical themes. Said provides a review of pre-18th century writing on the Muslim Near East and socio-political impact of Napoleon's invasion of Egypt in 1798. Orientalists had keen interest in classical rather than contemporary periods of Eastern culture. Chapter 2, Oriental Structures and Restructures. In this chapter, Said traces the development of modern Orientalism by presenting broadly chronological description. He also attempts to trace it by describing a set of devices usually common to the works of popular artists, poets, and scholars. Said presents a review of the French and English traditions of the study of Muslim Near East during the 19th century and further up to the World War One. For this purpose, his major focus is on the works of French Orientalists such as Sylvester de Sacy and works of English Orientalists like Edward Len's account of the manners and customs of modern Egyptian, published in 1836. Furthermore, in this chapter, Said endeavors to demonstrate how Orientalism has influenced and affected the Western perceptions of the Arab, Middle East, and Middle Eastern perception of themselves. Chapter 3, Orientalism Now. This chapter of Orientalism begins at the point where its predecessors had left off. It means around 1870. This period is characterized with great colonial expansion into the Orient, culminating in the Second World War. The last section of this chapter characterizes the shift from British and French to American hegemony. It presents the cultural, it presents the current social and intellectual realities of Orientalism in the USA. Said begins this chapter with discussion of Orientalism in 1920s and 30s. For this purpose, he reviews the careers of leading Islamicists of that time, like French scholar Lovis Massigon and English historian Hamilton Gibb. Edward Said takes note of the lectures of Hamilton Gibb as director of the Center for Middle Eastern Studies at Harvard University, especially his views on the Arab mind and the aversion of the Muslim from the thought process of rationalism, referring to Islam as Mohammedanism. Under the subtitle of the last phase, Edward Said reviews post-war to Orientalism as the United States came to be the center of activity with regard to the East. In the last phase, the highly qualified American area specialists took the lead, replacing the earlier philologists. Edward Said examines the role of these area specialists of the East. According to him, they help to perpetuate the dynamics of Orientalism in their representation of Islam and Arabs in four categories. These four categories are popular image and social science representation, public relations policy, merely Islam to see the Orient as an Western imitation of West. Okay, thank you. Let us conclude our class. We'll discuss next in our class. Okay, thank you.